meeting to order, the Bennington Select Board for Monday, April 13th, 2015. Would you all rise and say the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda tonight is the reorganization of the board, which we do every year after election. So I will entertain a motion for chair.
I would like to nominate Tom Jacobs for chair.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous with one
One
abstention. You
abstention.
can vote that.
I know, but it's not.
I'll entertain a motion for vice chair, please.
I'd very much like to nominate John McFadden, please.
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any other further nominations for vice chair? No? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And that's unanimous.
John didn't even show up.
He didn't even show up for this first meeting, so.
That's
I
usually how you get.
Turn the meeting over to you, Mr.
Thank you very
Chair.
much.
Don't go too far.
First, let me thank my board colleagues. I hope to do a good job with your help. If you would indulge me just for a few moments, I'd like to make a few observations of me and my hope for the new board. The new seating format and the way the agenda is going to be presented in the future is intended as a small message that we in town government have to be more nimble in addressing both challenges and as well as opportunity. We need to be creative and challenge the community to take risks and make public investment in our community. Entrepreneurs built this town, and we need more ways to encourage and support new ideas. While we must understand the business of the town, we as a board need to spend more time in planning and implementation discussion and leave it to the managers to manage the process. I invite and expect each board member to offer topics for agenda discussion on a routine basis, meaning that I'm not going to be creating the agenda solo because it's going to be our agenda. Board must be seen as the catalyst for change and encourage innovation, risk-taking, and new ways to accomplish the town's goals. Business as usual or doing things the way they have always been done will not assure our town of vitality or viability. I want to provide for meaningful and productive exchange by board and community on how we make some of these hopes for the community a reality. We intend as a board to invite businesses and industrial leaders to our meetings on a regular basis to exchange their community experience in real time. While important, we shouldn't be putting an emphasis on just recruiting and retaining businesses. We need to be recruiting people and ideas and formulating a common vision for what this town wants to and can accomplish. To do so, we have to seek and engage both public and private effort, time, and money. We need, as a town, not only continued planning, but a timeline for implementation of some of the projects that continue to languish in the planning phase. A couple of examples that I would share with you are the long discussed but not installed pedestrian/bike pathways. I think, we've talked about this for, seems like since I came to Bennington, we just have not completed that process. I would also like to see the finalization and implementation of the plans for the Merchants Park to be a true community asset used by the community and enjoyed by the community. The select board needs to move these and other efforts from plans to reality. And that does not mean that during my year as chair, that's all going to be accomplished, but we've got to be moving from planning to implementation. We need to give form to some of the various improvement plans and designs in our downtown. We also need to look what we would like to see developed further on North Side Drive and then pursue a timeline for making those a reality. We need to use social media as a productive tool to exchange ideas, but not just as a forum to complain about the present status of things. If we use the social media and all its attributes for our own personal ends, I can tell you the town is not going to gain from that exercise. I've heard from a number of folks who are willing to step up with ideas and investment, but have been hesitant about doing so. I expect the board and town management will join in that effort, because it's going to have to be a cohesive and combined effort. Finally, I hope that this board will convene a town meeting type of forum to hear from the community as to what it wants from Bennington. I would hope and expect that the board will actively engage in that discussion. So not to take any more time, let's get started, because we have a lot of work to do. Thank you. Thank you. As a first order of business, could someone make a motion for the March 23rd, 2015 minutes?
So moved.
Oh, great. I take it that there was a consensus for that? All in favor of the minutes? Without discussion? Okay.
I was not here, so I'll be abstaining from that.
Thanks, Justin. The warrants have been signed. Are there any questions relative to the warrants that you signed? Can I accept a motion or hear a motion for the warrants being accepted?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Any questions?
No, I'm going to behave myself.
Okay. There are no questions and no further discussion. All in favor of accepting the warrants as presented? All in favor? All have approved. At this point, I'm going to ask for a brief video presentation that Mike Harrington can share with us, which really underlines the spirit that this town has and what we need to make further efforts to make some of the beautiful visions here more of a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. To give just a little bit of background, what you'll see tonight is a quick 90-second video that's part of a much larger marketing push through some funding that we received from the USDA's Rural Development Program. And Donald, if you would be so kind as to pass those around. There's 3 different components that came as part of the project. What I'm passing around right now is a folder simply that can be used for recruitment as we go forward, but inside you'll also find 2 brochures. The brochures themselves are the same. They have 2 separate covers. What I'd like to do eventually is provide each board member with anywhere from 5 to 10 of these packets that you can use then to also continue the marketing and recruitment effort from the board's perspective as well, because I'm sure each of you come across different contacts in your daily business. The other component to that, besides the folder, the brochure, the folder, by the way, will be filled with one-page or white papers from different sectors in our community, so people can identify more information around a specific field, whether it be healthcare, industry, business, small business, downtown, and so on. The other component to this is the video, which I'll show in just a moment, and then after that I'll show you a 4th piece that we've been working on, which is not necessarily part of the grant, but is part of the overall marketing component. So let me play the video, and that'll just give you a quick snapshot. There's a lot of different attributes about the town that I think a lot of people who live here probably take for granted.
You've got a nice sense of a downtown, a nice sense of community here. The people really are friendly and very accepting. It's been that way most of my time here, 41 years with the town.
I'd lived in Phoenix and New York and Bangkok and London, and Bennington was the place where we wanted to raise our kids.
We live in a very safe community here. We're very fortunate to have 26 full-time police officers. We probably have one of the best volunteer fire departments in the entire state of Vermont.
The decision to move to Bennington was really a lifestyle decision for the family.
There are a lot of different attributes about Bennington, whether it's our healthcare system, whether it's our educational system, whether it's the community, the ability to walk down the street and have people know your name and say hi to people.
We have a unique location where we're in southwestern Vermont. We border New York. We're about 9 miles from the Massachusetts line.
But I think also we probably take for granted the vast recreational components that are here as well.
Vermont has a long history of fostering innovative entrepreneurial startups. Vermont has always been a great place to start and grow a family business.
Bennington, I think, has some of the most proud residents that I've ever met. There's this pride of everything that Bennington has to offer, and I think it's not just to show it off to people, but they want people to appreciate it just as much as they do. So that's one of 2 videos. There's a 60, thank you. There's a 60 and a 90-second video. Our hope is that all these videos, the person who put these together was actually a recent graduate of Burton Academy, and he's currently traveling around the U.S. on a number of different projects that he's working on, but he's committed to continue working with us. So our hope is to not just have these general marketing videos. There'll be a video focused on culture, a video focused on community, a video focused on business. The other piece that I think is really interesting and unique is that from the videos, whether you see Dimitri Garter speaking about technology and Global Z, or Marco Silver, the new president of Bennington College, if somebody wants to learn more about how that interview went about a specific area or industry, they can then go to a website that we've created and watch the full interview. So they can actually hear Marco speak about her entire decision to move to Bennington and all that she believes Bennington College can offer the community, and likewise. There's a number of interviews that we haven't done yet that will be going up. People like the CEO of the hospital here in town, as well as the president and CEO of Bennington Potters, and there's a handful of others. So we'll hope to have a full collage of videos to be able to present in the end that people can then learn more in depth about everything that our community has to offer. The only other thing I wanted to show is that the video is presented prominently on the website, but you can see where people have the ability to then request a welcome brochure, watch more videos, or request a business packet. And if they simply click, it will take them to a page where they can then request the information. And I would say probably in the first 48 hours, 72 hours of launching this, we probably had somewhere between 7 and 10 requests come in. Some as far away as Phoenix, Arizona, some as close as Pownell and Gage Street in Bennington. So we are grabbing just about everybody, but I think while I'm showing this to you for the first time, there will be a stronger effort to push this forward as we move on and look to build business in Bennington.
Are there any questions the board wants to ask Mike, since we have?
No, I think it's a great presentation. I've seen it on Facebook and stuff a lot, and it's a great promotion.
And I should say the people on the committee, a lot of work was done by Lindy Lynch, Kim Turner, then Micah Williams, my brother, Matt Harrington, David Rose was our videographer, Eric Wood was a photographer, and Renee Noel was the graphic designer for the project. And the printing material was all done locally as well, so Inkspot Press as well as Cray Printing did the brochures and the packets.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Where are you promoting this? Is this just a standalone website, or are you emailing different and various?
Yeah, so there'll be a larger strategy as the materials come out. The brochures have gone to the Welcome Center, they've gone to the Chamber, BCIC, the BBC. They'll be used for things like, one, if someone requests it, they'll be used at trade shows and business expos, places like the Big E and other areas where we think we'll get the bigger bang for our buck. The actual folder will have more specific and explicit material around recruitment in it, and that will be more targeted recruitment. We just don't have the ability or the funding to do a 5,000-piece mailing, but what we can do is identify very specific businesses that fill a niche that maybe is vacant at the moment, a specific industry, a specific type of business, and then we can do very targeted recruitment with both the brochure and this. The video, through the town's website, through social media. I'm hoping to have it played at the Welcome Center as well. It has gone on to our representatives at the state as well as the leaders in economic development at the state, so they've seen it, and I've gotten very good positive feedback from them as well, and they've passed it on to their marketing team up at the state level as well. So the video will also be put on a CD and will go out in the packet as we begin to do recruitment efforts.
Mike, can you give, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest that, you know, our target markets, I would think, would be cities like Boston, New York City, Hartford, Montreal, and if you could, I would suggest that you explore where we could get in touch with, I don't know, some civic organization or maybe a chamber organization in those cities, because that's really, wouldn't you agree that that is our target market?
It is, depending on whether you're trying to recruit business. You're probably less likely to have a chamber allow you to recruit business out of the population that they represent. However, if we're looking at tourism and visitors, then I would say they would certainly be interested in some type of daycation, you know, the ability to travel to Vermont and back within a day, certainly. And so I think we have to be looking at what are other markets, New York, Boston, even Albany, to say how do we begin to promote those items here. So I think that's a good point, Jim.
Thank you.
Talk a little bit more about the funding source, what we have left for funds to promote both the video and the packet, and what, you know, will you give an idea of what an ideal amount would be, you know, if you were going to try and do your dream
Sure.
package? What
So
we might need to look at?
the production of all the work and the printing took about $9,000, and that was, you know, really finding some talented people who didn't either were unwilling to be paid, which doesn't happen very often, or were paid at a pretty substantially reduced rate
Do
for
we
the
have
project.
pretty good inventory of this stuff also?
We do. So we have 1,500 of each brochure, and we have 2,000 of the folders. It won't last forever, even as I'm passing them out to all the different organizations. I'm finding, you know, we've only got a few boxes left. I'm hoping, my hope would be that for the most part, these will last us a year. I think if we wanted to simply get them reprinted, we'd be looking at about $3,000 to $4,000. If we wanted to do more work and design on them, a little bit more. At this point, as we look towards promoting it, I think if we look at a much larger marketing plan, you know, there's currently $5,000 set aside in each budget cycle for marketing. We would probably need to increase that, especially if we were trying to push it more heavily in larger markets. You know, whether we look to expand it to, say, you know, using a billboard within a different state or a market area, maybe something off of 787 or 87. So I think it really depends on the component. In terms of these, what we have here today will last us certainly well into the next fiscal cycle, which will start again in July, and then we can also reassess for the next budget cycle whether we want to take on more marketing challenges that would cost more.
Who's currently working on, I'm sure you are, but who's working with you on the strategy to push this forward?
So right now, it's included a couple different people. It's included the people on the marketing team, myself. I would also stay from town staff, the town manager, the assistant town manager, Mr. Keene, who's been working through the Bennington Economic Development Partners. In terms of disseminating the information, you're really at the first step. This stuff was published, you know, 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. The video anyways, this stuff we received about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. So we're really at the infancy stage in terms of who do we want to target and what material can we get them. We have a list that we've shared with the select board in the past of businesses that are on our prospect list that will continue to, I mean, this will be the first step to get them materials like this. As I said, this is, even though I have the folder here tonight, this is a work in progress because we'll be collecting the information from the different industries.
Do you have a way designed to track who these are going to?
What's that?
How are you going to track who these are going to?
We'll certainly keep a spreadsheet. We currently do of people who show an interest or businesses that have that we've identified would be a good mix for our community. So we have a list that we keep already on a spreadsheet, and we would be doing the same thing with this.
I just want to make one final statement, and, you know, this is all, and underscore what I said earlier, this is all well and good, and it's a beautiful family album, but we need to share this outside of Bennington, not just amongst ourselves. And that really, I think, needs to be underscored.
Yep.
Well, that's going to be the key,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. Michael, do you have a comment, question? Okay. Donald? Yes.
Stating the obvious.
Donald?
Yeah, it's really fun to watch this, and the amount of work that went into it is obvious. I think you and I talked about this earlier, but it's also amazing how quickly Bennington's other videos begin to look old.
Yeah.
And this looks fresh, and it's great, and it's really a wonderful, fresh view, and this will start looking old before too long, too,
Yeah.
so you can get ready for the next cycle.
Yeah, well, and I'm happy you said that, because I think we've got a good team and people are willing to continue working with us. You know, you're not going to find a videographer who's willing to work for $35 an hour, except we did. So the ability for us to continue to have him do work for us is very likely, as long as he doesn't overextend himself.
Thanks, Mike. I hope that you'll give us basically an update on the hits, and basically,
Yes.
you know, this is very early in the game.
Yep.
But I think it'd be helpful to the board just to see how effective the campaign was. And
Yep.
you can just use your own good judgment as to when and how that is done.
Yep.
I see I've already blown through the 2 minutes that you
Yeah.
allotted to.
Sorry about
So
that.
I've already blown
I will
the
get back
agenda.
to you with more details as things progress.
Thanks,
Thank you
Mike.
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, before I do that, I'd just like to formally welcome Donald Campbell to the board. That was not done other than at the time of your election. And welcome aboard, and looking forward to having you serve with us. Jim, welcome back again.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to some exciting opportunities that you're going to be sharing with us. Now we have the citizens' comment portion of the agenda, and I see that there's been 15 minutes allotted to that discussion, and I can suggest another factor that I'm going to be working on with my fellow select board members, the agenda, so that it recognizes citizens' comment period, but doesn't suggest that the comment period turns into a presentation of plans or otherwise. If there is a need, we'll put you on the agenda, but we really need to have citizens' comments limited in time and scope, and just give us a flavor of what you're looking for, questions that you have, and I can tell you that the chair or the management or members of the board will get back to you in responding to the questions. But having said that, I do understand that there is a request during the citizens' comment period for a brief statement, which includes a PowerPoint, but I can tell you in the future, I would ask that you not do that, because it really interferes with the flow. And as I said, I've already interfered with it myself. So if you would like to introduce yourself and...
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, go
just
ahead.
for one moment. I'm going to be a part of this group, so for the time being while this is being done, I'm going to step away as a select board member and
You're
take a
excused.
seat as a citizen.
Okay. Thanks, Jim, for bringing that to my attention.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Grimshaw. I've lived here slightly under 2 years in Bennington and have not regretted one day for coming here. It has been a pure joy to be here, and I know it will be a joy, pure joy to stay here in the future. This reads, "We are here." It's a little mercurial, but let me take you through that. I just want to comment that I'm glad we're tracking with Tom's comments of when we see problems, not complaining, but taking action, bold action, taking maybe what we know, turning it upside down, shaking it around, and trying to make a silk purse out of what perhaps once was a silk purse, but for reasons may not be now. So let me just jump right in. You are here, if you look at this is actually from the Chamber of Commerce. We have a big black kind of mark on our agenda for upcoming events, and that represents the car show. We don't have a car show. We don't have the 5,000 people who were supposed to be here, and all the monies associated coming into town. Hospitality monies, food monies, vending monies, they all will not be here. And we can sit and we can complain about that, or we can take bold action. I think I was in the right place at the right time, and a group of citizens came together and said, hey, what would happen if we took a look at this whole thing, and if we could do it differently and maximize the profit and push down the costs and change everything around? Could we do that? So we took a quick look at that, and we have designed the Bennington Downtown Car Show. It is a one-day event, one long day, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's divided into two components right here in downtown Bennington, Vermont. We think, where's Michael? Because we picked up the look and feel of Bennington, because and we feel that every event should pick up the look and feel of what we're putting. So it's kind of a top-down branding approach, and we're happy to support that. We feel that Fall Fun in Vermont begins right here on September 19th. We kick off the fall right here in Bennington. Just a word about kind of a market outlook. Hemmings put out an article not too long ago, and they said, is the car culture dying with the young? And they answered their own question. They said, absolutely not. The demographics are being pushed down in the car show, and yet our car show, I'm told, even by folks on the board, is skewing very, very old. So what we want to do is try and push down the demographics, make it younger, make it a little livelier. For the lack of a better word, make it a little sexier. And that's borne down below. When you look at, say, the New England International Auto Show, 80% of the attendees are under 55. Okay? So there's gold in kind of that 12 to 55 demographic, and that's right where we want to be. Is the current show in that demo, it might skew a little old. So as we progress older in age, the car show has stayed kind of stagnant in its target demo. And what we want to do is roll that back and get it younger. What would the event look like? Okay, well, there's, just as an overview, there is a group, and we'll introduce them in just a few moments, of a group that wants to come together, put an LLC together, and stage a one-day, one-night event in downtown Bennington on Main Street, right down Main Street. Okay, it would be like Mayfest. We would be closing it in Fallapalooza. We believe that there's room for one more event to close down Main Street. How would it all play out? Well, at 5 a.m., everything closes on Main Street. From 5:30 to 9:30 a.m., we have a very well-organized load-in with cars and vendors. I'll get to vendors in a moment. We would have a car show daytime exhibition from 10 a to 6 p.m. We would then load out these cars. Why? Because we've got something else in mind. We want to stage at 8 p.m. that night a car hop street dance. Just a really good time. Compress the whole area down to just a couple of blocks and have a great street dance and have something for everyone to remember when they go home. And then at 11 o'clock, when everything's said and done, we strike and everything is looking just as it did when we started, and we all go home. Here's what it would look like if you kind of took a map. And if you went in from either side, you'd get the same thing moving into the center, to the center stage. You'd have show cars, you'd have vendors, dealers. Yes, dealers. We want to involve our area dealers because around that time, there's the introduction of the 2016 automobiles. I should mention, we want to do that this year, in the next 5 months. That's when this will happen. So it's not just, antique cars and gearhead and what Hemmings termed junkie dealers. We're going to really bring this thing up and make it into a class event. The car hop, everything would compress down to that one block between Four Corners and, say, School Street, maybe even compress it a little further. Have a couple of bands, have a lot of fun out in the street. Vendors, some selected vendors might stick around and sell some of their wares, and everyone would have a great time. What are the elements of this? Well, there's a classic car show, and there's categorized judging. I haven't been able to discern if the event of the past has been an AACA event, which is the Antique Automobile Club of America, but it certainly could be. We get sanctioned in that. We don't know at this point. We're also going to have some specialty judging. We'd like to create a People's Choice Award might lead to a sponsor with peoples in it, about people actually voting for their favorite car. So we want to have just more than kind of the old fuddy-duddy kind of judging on whether a component, one little component in a car, takes that car down or up. But we want to find the car with the biggest sex appeal and reward that. We envision the 2016 new model intros from area car dealers, and we think they're going to be there are our signature sponsors. We see a lot of vendors, gearhead vendors, again, no junk dealers, food vendors, craft vendors. It is indeed the car show meets Mayfest. That's what we envision. There'll be center stage entertainment with bands playing all day. Maybe we can get something like the original Batmobile, little things like that can draw the interest of the young folks and things like that. We will then stage our car award presentations, and then finally the car hop street dance. What are our revenue streams with all this? We've contemplated. We will not live by one revenue stream alone. Admission, it's free. Free. Why? Because, first of all, it's difficult to contain in that area, number one. Number two, if there are 5,000, I'm told, Joanne, about 5,000 patrons come to the car event? Is that? Okay. So if 5,000 are willing to pay, how many will come for free? And how can we showcase Bennington on a much higher order with more bodies? So we like that. We think we can make up those monies with sponsors because there are more bodies and more people to sell to, and the sponsors will come and they'll realize the value of that. We think maybe if we can compress the street dance, we might be able to get a cover for that. Monetize partnerships, and that is working with our local hospitality businesses. If one or two or three hotels want to become the official hotels of the event, good, we'd love to have you. We're going to market the heck out of you under our tent and under our umbrella, and we're going to take a little piece of your action, just a little. And then merchandising at site before, during, and after the event. So we have looked at all of these revenue streams. We have looked at the expenses in our pro forma, and so far the numbers work. We're excited about the numbers. We think this can be a nice, profitable event. Is anyone going to retire off of it? No. But we think it's going to bring a lot of business and a lot of bodies to Bennington, and that's what we want. Who's behind this? Okay, obviously we have an organizing committee of myself, Phil Pappas, Jim Carroll, Mary Bates Muckle, and Sam Rustino. We've had conversations with the Better Bennington Corporation, and they have advised us, move ahead with this. Move ahead. We had discussions with Joanne, and Joanne said, I like it. And you tell me, Joanne, if I'm... Okay, she likes it and thinks we should move ahead. But one component we wanted to talk to, because we didn't want to spring this on the downtown sector and just say, you guys, you know what, we're doing this, you have to live with it. We didn't want to do that. So we sent a team around, we canvassed 23 businesses on Main Street in the area that we talked about that would be affected. Here are the results. And you can read all of here are some of the verbatims. This is fabulous. We want to help with this. It's much better venue than Willow Park. Should be much less labor intensive because it's in town. Main Street is better than any place else. We'd like to help with this event. More. Madison Brewery. Yeah, we have to move fast on this. Bringing You Vermont. They told us this is right up their alley. They're dreaming for an event like this. They want to be intimately involved. Gamers Grotto, they're actually going to build a car video event and board games around the whole event. That's how excited they are about it. And there's one, there's always one in every that maybe just, the event becomes too much for them. And, Star Electric, they feel it's going to adversely affect their business. But what's our batting average? Actually, it's higher than this, 950. What happens when you bat 950?
Jeff, again, you're beginning to get into more than just the comment, and I appreciate that. I guess the question that I would have, when are you going to be ready to come as an agenda so that we can really get into the meat of this? Because you've already gotten well along into it, and we're at a certain disadvantage.
Well, we're done now. We're done now, and we
but
can
when-
come back
when-
and we
when
can come
will
back
you
to the
be-
next meeting or whenever you want. But again, we're here to advise you that we're going to move forward, and we're going to announce, unless we hear some kind of hideous objections tonight, that we have to go back and think about.
I can tell you that you're not going to hear any hideous response because we haven't even given any deliberation to this presentation. I would suggest that what you should do is deal with our town manager's office with pro formas and what you will expect to provide and need from the town. And then we'll put it on the agenda, and we'll do that as soon as possible, recognizing that time is short. But at the same time, this is a community fair, and we need to be involved in the use of the downtown and how it can best be accomplished. So I can only recommend that you work with Mike, probably would be a good one, to...
Happy to do so.
Yep, and then he will make sure you get on an early agenda, and we can go from there.
Thank you. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your attention. Thanks, guys.
Just, Jeff, just quickly, I just add, thanks for all the work. I think this is really, really awesome that you guys have come together to try and put something together. I'm certainly open to it. I want to hear all that you guys, you can come up with, get all the details on it. We want to take it under serious consideration. And, hopefully we'll all be able to move forward with this.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can be a partner in it as well.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks. Are there any other citizens that would like to come before us tonight? Okay. There are a couple second readings, Stuart, relative to the fire and police department ordinances, reimbursement. Could you share those with us?
We have three ordinances to review tonight, second reading, and obviously we'll be looking for a formal approval. The first two relate to the fire department adding to the private alarm ordinance that is already governing false alarms and other problems that police have in responding to alarms which are not real. We want to add the fire department to that. And then we have the service reimbursement ordinance, which is becoming pretty common throughout the state of Vermont and the United States in reimbursing fire departments for response to calls which are perhaps either carelessness or negligence or some other fault of the individual involved. Paul Doucette, Chief Doucette is here, as well as Chief Vickers, and the second assistant, am I correct on that one? Assistant Chief. And if you have any questions about the ordinance, I think there were some questions about numbers that the fire department had seen with regard to false alarms and those kinds of things. I think those folks can answer them, and if you have specific questions, love to answer them for you.
Anyone on the board like to initiate the questions? Or?
I think I asked in the last select board meeting what the numbers were with respect to false alarms, and really just a guess at the revenue stream from this. And what's it cost? Well, I think bottom line is, what does it heretofore cost the town to respond to these?
Right. Our fire incident reporting that we currently use, I have some numbers, but the reports aren't set up or geared to this exact ordinance. So it's somewhat difficult to extract the data exactly how it would fit. If this were to go into effect, we could change our reporting to be in line with this to be more accurate. But what I did, I looked at two. So false alarms first, I'll go through that. I looked over the last 3 years for repeat false alarms at the same address that were truly false alarms. 2012, we had 6. This is excluding the exempted properties. 6. 2013, we had 17. And 2014, we had 22. Now, of those, the first would be a warning, and it's difficult to get an exact dollar number there for that, but it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 of those 22 in 2014, for example, would be the warning, the remainder would be fines. One property had up to 5 false alarms, another property had 7. So those would be significant. Now, over time, it tends to fluctuate, and some properties get into a problem where they have issues with their alarm systems that aren't fixed, and that gets fixed over time, and other properties develop problems, so it kind of fluctuates over time, but there's always these same properties that seem to have issues that are difficult. So that's on the alarm side. Did you have any questions on that specifically? Okay.
Well, Jeff,
Yep.
if I could ask, when an alarm comes in, what happens? What is the response that we give to an alarm?
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
part of the key here.
Right. For us, we have to treat it's an alarm of fire. We treat everyone as if it's a fire, because that is what it is until proven otherwise. Now, what we try to do to reduce that impact on the community is whoever gets there first to find out quickly if we meet somebody or find out if it's a false alarm, to downgrade response and return the vehicles that aren't needed. Now, it's difficult at night. A lot of places aren't occupied. You're waiting on a key holder. You don't want to bust somebody's door down to go in and find out it's a false alarm. So we try to be aware of our customer and not do any damage unless it's absolutely needed. But we basically are going to roll all apparatus and all personnel to every fire alarm as if it's a true fully involved structure fire, because that's what it is until we know otherwise. And that's what we have to do. If we downgraded and didn't do that, and then it was found to be a serious alarm, we'd be really in a bind liability-wise.
Question.
So that was that. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chief, thank you. From 6 to 17 to 22, that's a big jump. It's more than 3 times. What do you attribute that to?
Just random. It truly is random.
Purely random, yeah.
You know, sometimes you get the hits. You know, one in 2014 had 7, and 2 years prior had 0. You know, it is difficult. And then, too, like I talked about, sometimes I think the reporting, while we do our best to capture the true incident in our reporting, it's a national database that we load those into so they can track trends and things like that. Problem issues, problems with equipment that maybe is showing up, multiple fires throughout the country. They try to identify those. I think if this were to be in place, we'd have more consistent numbers probably. Some of that's probably reporting, and some of it's true variability.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions on that?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm interested. It sounds like, maybe this is the wrong approach, but the fees don't sound very high. So if you ended up with 15 calls and $750 coming in the course of a year, might you spend more than that just trying to collect on the tickets?
So way prior to your time, Mr. Campbell, what has happened is the board has tasked myself and at the time Chief Crawford, Fire Chief Crawford, with coming up with ways to save taxpayer dollars on responses to different types of fire calls. And we identified alarms as an issue. And what happens is that with the response, we're not looking to heavily penalize people. We want them to come into compliance and get their alarm fixed, hence the warning the first time. It's nothing different than what we're doing on the police side. In this ordinance, we're just looking to add fire. We're not looking to generate a lot of revenue out of this. It's more of a compensation, but at the same time, if you get your alarm corrected, then that will alleviate some of the problems. It will prevent response from the fire department, getting firemen out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning when they're volunteers, idle time on some of the trucks. When you sit there and you wait for a key holder at 3 o'clock in the morning for 45 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes, and those trucks are all sitting there running, these guys do a great job about looking at the situation and deciding whether or not to return equipment. But we've had many conversations about if you return equipment and there is actually a problem once the key holder responds, then you got to bring people back. And we try not to do that. We try to be prepared right then and there.
Great.
So again, it's not a huge penalty, but it's a fee to hopefully get people to come into compliance.
Just have to get people's attention. Thank you. That's a good answer.
And along with that, if I could say, ideally, we'd never have any issue with this, and that's, I think, the goal. Besides all the other stuff and the expense to the town and the taxpayers, I think one of the big parts of it too is a kind of a cry wolf situation where if you have some properties that have multiple repeat alarms, the firefighters are human and they're gonna, 3 in the morning and it's cold out, they're gonna think it's another false alarm and they're not gonna necessarily respond in the way they would. There's some properties that we've never had an alarm. When I hear an alarm there, I think there must be something to it because we've never been there before. And then there's other properties that you assume it's a false alarm, and we've gone and they're not false alarms. So you have to overcome that, but to keep from the minimize the false alarms, I think, is really the goal.
I guess a danger of these things is while you're waiting for somebody with the key to the door, and you've got crews on site there, another alarm goes off. How do you've got to split people up, and it increases the level of potential danger.
Yeah, it's definitely happened. That's happened more than once.
Thank you.
Sure.
The purpose of this is to really add the fire department.
Yes.
Because it's been in place for quite a while now for the police side of things.
Yes.
What's your experience with that, Chief? Has there been from the police side of responsives, has that been an ongoing issue until this was adopted some years ago?
I think the community has done much better since this was adopted. We do still have occasions where we are sending bills, and sometimes there is delay in having those paid. Quite honestly, Joan Pacino does a great job getting the bills out, and when they're not paid, she usually contacts me, and I'm not going to name the business, but just recently we've had 3 that were not paying, and it took a visit, explain why, and all 3 of those bills were promptly paid. So I think it's getting people to understand that this isn't really a big way of generating revenue. It's more to bring people into compliance, and I think that a lot of people understand that. Has it reduced the number of alarms that the police department goes to? I think it's reduced a little bit because people will actually go and get their alarms fixed, whether it's Adams Lock or whomever's working on your alarm system. The phone call is made. And in all fairness, I know some of you are thinking about this, and Chief Vickers and I had this conversation. There are at times people whose alarm does activate. We respond. They do call the provider. They get it serviced. Doesn't quite work the first time, and that's why there is an appeal process in here, so that if people have shown me in the past that they did make some type of effort, we can make that bill null and void, and as long as I can see that they're making an effort. So again, there is an appeal process. There's a way to go about this, and it is simply to avoid response that's not necessary.
Because I don't see it as a real punitive ordinance. I think as Donald's addressing, I think it's basically an education ordinance. And probably if the word is out, enough folks get those letters of payment, it'd probably become less a problem. But you're going to, I expect, see more and more of the folks arming themselves for the security and otherwise. And they've got to do it the right way, because that could be a challenge to service and to response, and we shouldn't have to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments that you'd like to make, Chief?
That was on the false alarms.
Yeah.
Would you like?
Yeah, why don't we just
Yep.
move on that one as
Okay.
you're standing there, if I could. Could I have a motion for the, since it's a second reading?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion on that first one? All in favor? Very good. And we'll move to the reimbursement for the service ordinance.
If it's all right with you, I'll circulate this one for signature while we're talking about
Great,
the other.
thanks.
As far as the reimbursement, that one's, again, due to our reporting, it's a little difficult to get the data, but reading through the proposed ordinance, and I highlighted 3 things that are fairly common and easily identified in our reports to get kind of a rough baseline. So motor vehicle accidents in general, we currently don't split out extrication accidents, which are in the ordinance, but we do respond to those as well, so those are included in this total number. For 2012, 19 motor vehicle accidents. 2013, it was 33. 2014, it was 25. Now, if those were all billed at the standard, just regular rate that was proposed, it would be 9,500, 16,500, and 12,500 for those numbers over the year. Down power lines, similar, 3 in 2012, 0 2013, 5 2014. So there's those numbers there. And I just used the standard $500 fee that was included in the schedule. I don't know if that would be the accurate number to use for these. And then unauthorized burning, 2012 we had 1, 2013 4, 2014 4. So total of 2012 for those three line items was 11,500, 2013 was 18,500, and 2014 would be 17,000. I don't know that all of those would be collected necessarily, based on the fact that it was geared towards nuisance or negligence type things. And not all of those would probably apply to every situation, but those are the raw numbers as far as what those three categories would break down to.
Questions? Sharon?
No, I have no
Justin?
questions.
I do not.
Okay. Just a question. Relative to this, how well do you think you'll be able to collect on these charges? Because when you have personal injury claims, counterclaims, et cetera, it seems like you could be chasing your tail.
My take on that would be we would submit it for payment, and if it is paid by the insurance company, if it's an insurance company, hopefully they're expecting that, and I think that's part of the logic behind this, is they do expect that to be asked of them and that they would follow through. I wouldn't imagine we would spend a tremendous amount of time pursuing if they didn't, the individual insurance companies, but that would really be Paul's area.
So one of the things that we looked at with this, and again, going back about 2 years ago at a budget meeting in January, we took a look at the issues of needing an ordinance for service reimbursement. There are other municipalities here in Bennington County, much smaller municipalities that have been billing for years, to include Shasbury and Arlington, just as an example, and they use a third-party billing. We are fortunate in the sense that based on the numbers that we came up with here, we would be able to use people either with my staff or with the manager's staff so that we could go and move forward with that billing. For those of you that were not privy to that meeting, some of the things that came out of that request, for lack of a better term, was from time to time we do damage equipment. Most recently we damaged some extrication equipment. It's been probably a year now or so where some cutters were damaged. We actually used money from a donation account, from a reserve account, to purchase a new set of cutters, and since then we've gotten the other ones fixed. But last night's a great example. We did damage some 5-inch line at a structure fire, and that line is $7 a foot. So the purpose of this reimbursement ordinance would be to take money that we are able to collect from motor vehicle crashes and things of that nature, set that money into a reserve account so that when we did blow a 5-inch line, or we did need new cutters, or we needed some other type of equipment, we wouldn't have to rely upon and burden the taxpayers in Bennington when we would have this money in a reserve account and we could simply buy equipment. You know, from time to time, each year we do buy some new equipment for the fire department and for the fire trucks, to include hoses, but at the same time, it's expensive. And if we do have damaged equipment, we would like to be able to go to this reserve account and be able to purchase that equipment without placing a burden on the taxpayers. So I think it's essential that we take this ordinance seriously, and that we do our best to recover some of the monies and follow what other municipalities that are much smaller than we are already doing.
Is there a motion?
I'll move we accept the ordinance.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the ordinance? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The third ordinance that we're looking at is the solid waste variable rate pricing and hauler registration and reporting ordinance. A very long title. Basically, an ordinance which is now required by the recent legislation. All haulers must be licensed, and they must use a variable rate pricing or a unit-based pricing system in order to serve their customers. Bennington Transfer Station has been doing unit pricing for years. It's a per ton or per bag cost. That's what we're talking about. The haulers now who collect curbside collection will now have to display on their bills how their pricing scheme meets the variable rate pricing formula. This is a push down from the Agency of Natural Resources to ensure that all haulers are treating their customers at least in a similar manner, if not the same, but in a similar manner. And it will allow the state and municipalities working with the state to better track who's doing business in Vermont and where is the solid waste going. So that's the purpose of this ordinance. It has to be in place by June 18th, 2015. This is drafted based on a model the state has proposed. We are looking to charge $15 for the individual license and $50 for a fleet. So we're not attempting to put people out of business here. And in fact, we used to license haulers in Bennington when we operated the transfer station.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? It's unanimous. And then we were talking about the Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance contract.
Yes, this is the last document that really actually follows the adoption of the previous ordinance. As you all know, 13 towns have been meeting over the last 6 months or so, first forming a joint municipal survey committee to take a look at how we handle solid waste and recycling in the future here in Bennington County. The law, Act 148, the Universal Recycling Law, has made all of the processes that municipalities must face much more complex, much more detailed, and the state is setting goals that are fairly substantial. 50% recycling, when we're now in the range of 30 to 35%, have been for the last 15 years. So there's going to be an impetus on the part of the state to force communities to improve their recycling. It includes removing compostable material from the waste stream. Ultimately, we're starting with the very large industries now, but ultimately the single-family homeowner is going to be facing the same requirement. And it puts the responsibility for offering curbside collection of those materials on the haulers who are doing business. And if you read the paper the other day, Keith did a story where he talked with Trevor Mance of TAM, and he's facing substantial costs to comply with this ordinance. But once again, we find ourselves as individual towns within the county all having to meet this very complex situation. Bennington, perhaps Shaftesbury, Manchester, where there are professional staff on hand, might have a better chance of succeeding, but there are a lot of small towns that don't have any administrative staff, and they're relying on offices like the town clerk or the health officer to try to enforce these kinds of things. Thus, the alliance was born. It is an advantage for the smaller towns to join with us, to help share in some of our costs. This alliance now has been adopted by a number of the communities. I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head how many, but it is once in place. The alliance with your representative, and at the present time I am your representative on the committee, will then go about developing the necessary tools to comply with not only the new Act 148, but also our new solid waste implementation plan, which will also be coming back before you folks at some point in the future. We're in the draft mode now, and it will comply with the new waste management plan of the state of Vermont, which is also required by law. So I put this before you. It's been well vetted by the group. You can tell by the weighted voting and those kinds of things that there is some recognition that some of the larger towns will play a larger role. I am hoping, and we're going to find out because we're offering our Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day on May 9th to the towns of Shaftesbury, Pownell, and Stamford to join us and they'll share in the cost, but it'll also give us an opportunity to see how well this collection of towns work together. Right now, the Regional Commission is acting to help steer us in the right direction. Ultimately, the Alliance will be the entity that will be making those kinds of decisions and generating the information necessary to comply with the law. So I see this as a big step for the county, but I would hope that the board would support it because I think it's the right thing to do.
Is this the actual first reading of this, or? I've
This
seen
is
it
actually,
before.
we had this on
Several times.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is actually the second reading.
It hasn't changed in the
It has not changed.
Okay. Okay.
We've done a little wordsmithing, but that's about it.
Is there a
We
motion?
have a question.
Actually, we have not got to the point where the board is going to be taking this under, it's not even at the motion level. I'd like to have the board make a motion first.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Would you like to have a discussion on this? Entertain a discussion, any discussion you would like?
I don't have any questions,
Okay.
but
Before we vote, if you would like to make a quick question to the town manager? And identify yourself, too.
Good morning, good evening. I'm Sam Rashino, a citizen of Bennington. I see this forthcoming because of the rules and regulations of the Vermont legislation with the ordinances. There are going to be more ordinances coming down the pike. First it hits the businesses, then after it hits the businesses, it's going to hit the residents. When you start incurring fees for trash haulers, naturally, where are they going to pass their costs down to? The residents. And a lot of the residents right now don't read into this and wait until they get a bill. And they're going to find out and ask the question, why is there an increase? So right now, we've opened up a slight can of worms, a slight discussion because prices do go up, but trying to become into law, I'm a little more versed into this because I do follow the legislation. Right now, going down the pike, we're going to have to start sorting our food waste, correct? Is that what's coming down the pike 4 or 5 years from now?
That's correct.
Yep, so when it affects the restaurants and the businesses and the colleges, then it's going to affect the residents. So this is going to happen 7, 8, 9, 10 years, somewhere like that, or sooner?
It's actually much faster than that.
Okay. I'm just trying to delight the citizens of Bennington,
By
that's all.
2020, all residential customers who are using a facility in the state of Vermont will have to be removing food waste from their waste stream. Those who use the transfer station currently will continue to do so. And we're already thinking about how we might assist them in providing a collection area at the transfer station for their food waste. As you know, Trevor Mance is operating a composting facility
Correct.
at the rear of our transfer station. And we think we can work with Trevor to provide that service. So for those people who use the transfer station, who take their own recycling to the transfer station, you most likely will not see the impact of these fees. Those who use curbside collection will be the ones that will most likely bear the brunt of any increase that the haulers have to implement in order to...
Because they're going to have to sort their trash, pretty
That's
much.
correct.
Okay,
And they're
and
going
be
to
in
have to collect
compliance.
recyclables.
I'm just trying to educate the John Q. public outside. Thank you for my concern.
Okay, thank you for asking that question, because as I read this ordinance, it's basically an administrative ordinance to get towns together to administer the requirements that are coming down the pike. And there are no fees that are stated in this ordinance. It's the process that we're talking about.
Yeah, truthfully, this is a contract.
Yep.
Among 13 towns.
Right. How many did you say were on board so far? Would you guess out of 13?
I'm guessing that at least 5 have already adopted both the ordinance and signed the contract. There are a number of meetings this week, similar to ours, among select boards throughout the county that are going to be considering this same thing this week. We're hoping to have everyone on board within the next week and a half to 2 weeks.
And what's our timeline, or the requirement under the statute?
Under the statute,
Yeah, I know we could.
this agreement is not really driven by the statute as the other ordinance is, but it would be nice to have the alliance in place so that we can move forward with the development and ultimate implementation of the solid waste implementation plan. And that's a much larger document that will govern how the county handles its trash and recyclables. So without this in place, we're back to dealing with individual towns trying to manage an implementation plan on their own, much as we have done for the last 25 years. This is a step, I think, that we need to take, and the alliance will become the entity then that pushes out the educational outreach, pushes out recommendations to the haulers and to others on how to better meet the Act 148 requirements.
Because again, as I read it, we're the largest stakeholder here, or participant, and the concern that I would have would be, are we going to be picking up a larger part of the responsibility? Granted, we are going to be using the services greater, but it looks to me like there's a formula that recognizes both rights and responsibilities of all of the member participants.
That is correct. And it's basically, we're approaching this as a one-man, one vote. The voting is weighted. We tried to fashion it so that, two big towns couldn't get together and drive the whole thing in a direction that the smaller towns couldn't either afford or weren't willing to undertake. So it's a very difficult mix to try to find that magic agreement that will allow us all to work on this together. I am very hopeful, at least given the people that have been appointed so far, that it's a really good group. They're really heading in the right direction. They all want to see cost savings, but they also all know that they have to meet the law.
Tom?
Any further questions?
No, I have a comment in contrast to your point. We seem to be the biggest entity. I think it's only right that, A, we lead by good example, and if we were to benchmark ourselves against what other communities of our size, certainly in the New England region, do, we'd certainly want to be doing some of the same things.
Any other questions as part of the discussion? Okay, I'll accept the vote. All in favor of it? Looks like a unanimous decision.
Circulate that as well. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is 10 minutes for a consent agenda discussion. I'm going to table that myself if I can. Not that I don't want to give up 10 minutes of valuable time, but I'm going to suggest some changes to the agenda format in the future, which would include consent agendas and how we might get through some of the more perfunctory stuff quicker and get to the meats of the meeting. And I'll share that with the board so we can get a bite of it, and we'll decide if that will work and what needs to be tailored to reach that goal. I'm also going to share a suggestion for rules of procedure for the select board going forward. And I'm not a big proponent of rules and regulations, but I think it would be helpful if we had some reference point as we're dealing with some of the business that comes before us. So it's basically going to be an outline of how we work amongst ourselves and how we deal with the public at large, just so the public understands and expects what we would hope we can deal with on a business fashion. And I'll share that with us for a future agenda. So really I've taken 2 minutes to talk about a consent agenda. So I don't think at this point I need more unless you want to talk about it. Any?
No, we'll wait for your lead.
Yeah, great, thank you, good. Then we have an Economic Development Fund program update, and Mike is going to also share that, because I think we've also received, most recently, the product.
Yeah, and hopefully you can make up some time on this. I'll just give a quick update of where we're at. I've met with a majority of the board. Still have to meet with Member Carroll and Member Corcoran on this piece. So I'll look to grab you two after tonight's meeting and put that together. So what we have right now is just simply a culmination of the different edits, suggestions, and feedback we've gotten to this point. I have here just a copy to go around, and it's already out of date because some suggestions came through for just minor edits and wordsmithing, but anyway, for the most part, the content is the same.
Just for the audience, would you remind the audience of the purpose
Sure.
and the intent of this?
So just again for edification for people listening, the town has decided to pause or halt, discontinue its microloan program, and we are currently working on a program description for the Bennington Economic Development Fund, which would be somewhat of catalyst capital used to spark investment in public-private partnerships and redevelopment within the town of Bennington. So simply what we have here is the fund in terms of how it would be reviewed and how different projects would be vetted and eventually approved, and the types of mechanisms that would be in place to control and evaluate progress on different projects. And again, this is has been in motion for a while, but is on the heels of the presentation from St. Albans and the type of public-private partnerships that were used in that community to spark development and redevelopment.
I think from a protocol perspective, we've got to get this warned sooner rather than later, and get it through the 2 meetings. And anything that you can do to facilitate the meetings with Justin and Jim to get that, so we can have the first reading next time around.
Sure.
And then hopefully get it past the next meeting, because this is a valuable tool that you've worked long and hard to put together, and it's time to get it off the ground. Go ahead.
While you mentioned St. Albans, and a number of us have seen their presentation of some pretty good financial strategies to enable economic development, I think everybody should recall that there are probably 50 different municipalities in northern New England that are doing something similar. And we're not doing anything exotic or strange. We're just trying to catch up with the game.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Good. Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. We have some liquor applications. These are the type of things that I see future consent agenda items.
Yes.
But today, we're separated for 3 minutes.
Today, we had to amend what was in your packet. We have added 2 first-class renewals. I've highlighted them in yellow so you know who they are, but there are 11 renewals for first class, 6 for second-class renewals, and I'll just circulate that for signature. And we have 1 new application. This is for Abigail's Country Kitchen at Powers Market. The business there has been sold, and so this is a new application that I will circulate. It has a place for signatures, and I've highlighted that with a yellow ticket.
I'll abstain from that one for conflict. Please. While we're going through the signing of those, you want to talk about the grand list?
Yes.
2014?
Annually, the listers at some point finish appeals that occur in the given tax year. We now have a confirmation that we have no pending appeals for 2014. This does require board signatures in the right-hand column. There are not enough lines, so if you want to squeeze your names in, that's fine. But this gets filed with the formal grand list documents and just basically closes that particular tax year. And I'll circulate that for signature.
I guess we can go right into the manager's report if you're available for that.
I am. Over the last couple of weeks, John Miner and I have been having discussions about monies that were originally available in 2010 for the Veterans Memorial at the Vermont Veterans Home. The voters approved a $50,000 appropriation at that time. Unfortunately, when the work was done and the fiscal year ended, whatever monies were unexpended went into the general fund balance. They were no longer technically for that particular project. John has come back to me now. He's ready to move into the Desert Storm phase of the memorial, and we have determined that there are $10,774.74 that were unexpended from that first $50,000, and he's asking the board if you would allow him to draw on that money from the general fund balance to support this memorial as he brings it to fruition.
So moved. If that's a motion, I think that's a very worthwhile thing to do.
Any further discussion or any discussion on it?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Justin?
I don't know.
All in favor, signify aye. It's consensus.
And I do have one thing that came to me outside of the packet. Mike Bethel has indicated that he would be interested in bringing music to the porch at the town offices, as he did some years ago. John Shanahan has indicated that the BBC is not looking to do that this year, to pull together those musicians. Mike, perhaps working with Spencer Sweet and his wife, would like to give it a shot to see if we can provide some entertainment in the downtown. We would have to obviously figure out how he's going to do it, and we can work that out if the board is willing to allow him to use the porch at least one night a month during the summer months.
Like a Friday or?
Are they going to tie that in with First Friday?
No, I don't think so. I think he's looking to do it on a different night, so there's activities on more than
It
one
was
night.
done, did he do it 2 summers ago? It was a pretty good success, was it? I don't think it was last year.
Well, last year, the BBC did First Fridays.
Right.
Yeah. with
And
the
then I
music
think
and
2
that.
years ago, Justin, you're right, Mike pulled together some groups and got them up there. And, you know, there was some good music, and people seemed to come and enjoy it. It's not a bad venue for music, and we've upgraded the wiring so that people can do so without blowing fuses.
We're starting fires.
The BBC did a good job last year, but I think one of the challenges, not complaints, were some of the merchants also had musical activities ongoing in front of or at their stores. So there was a bit of a conflict. So it certainly makes sense for the BBC to step back from that and put their energies in other places.
So if you don't have objection, I'll work with Mike to see if we can pull it off on a night that wouldn't conflict with others.
Any thoughts or concerns?
Okay.
I think we have consensus
Yeah,
that it's a
There's
good idea.
consensus. Sure.
Great, thank you.
Michael tells me we have a consensus. I'm with it. Anything else, Stuart?
No, I think that's it.
We'll have to move in a moment or two, but I would like to open the opportunity for the board to ask any particular questions, comments that it might want to, or they might want to make, or any announcements that they feel might be helpful to the community. And I'm going to start right off with Donald.
Well, I'm very pleased to be here. And I'm not sure if Dan's going to have a chance to talk about it, but it was a it was a special privilege working with the town of Bennington employees, put my Vermont Land Trust hat on, in doing the acquisition of the Morgan Street wetlands that became known as the Walloomsac Headwaters Park. And I was struck by the professionalism and the thoroughness of the town employees, and it was really a great experience for both for me, but also for Vermont Land Trust. So, thank you very much.
Do you have any announcements that you would like to make relative to the farmers market, or is that coming up?
That's coming up.
Okay, thank you very much. Michael?
As you know, Tom, and as Stu and Dan know, John McFadden and Sharon Brush and I have been working with Stu and Dan on developing some different and interesting performance metrics for the town of Bennington itself. What we'd like to do, and Stu and we discussed this, we'd like you to call a Saturday session so we could give the whole select board a working session on these balanced scorecard benchmarks that we're putting together, so that people have a theoretical understanding of what we're going towards. And when we've done that, we'd certainly like to present it in general session to citizens.
Okay. Before we leave, then everyone loves Saturday sessions, especially in the summer. Would you think 2 hours?
I'd say 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Now, when Sharon and John and I did it at my house, we did it with wine. I don't think we'll be doing that.
Not unless we go back to your house.
I'm
As
just
the
looking
board.
at the liquor licenses and I don't see.
That's right, yeah. But 2.5 hours should be fine. And if we need another one, we'll take another one after that.
This is an important
Yeah.
discussion, and I appreciate the effort that the three of you have put in to it, because we, again, like everything else, I'd like to move it forward as fast as we can. I think, Sharon, you're going to be gone for a bit. When are you leaving?
But I understand it, so you really,
Yeah.
you don't need me.
You don't want to hear it again?
You don't need me there to hear it again, but.
Okay. We do need we should have a quorum for
Yeah.
that purpose of the discussion. What about your availability, Justin?
Saturdays are tough for me.
Yeah, I know you have to get in.
Yeah, but, we'll see what we can put together.
I know you have to be in,
I
if we
work.
have it early, would it be earlier the better?
Real early.
You know,
It's
Tom,
a tough day for me,
I know.
just honestly, it really is, but, put it together, let's see what we can come up with. And
Okay.
Tom, an alternative might be an evening. I don't know what time you finish off at your work. but
Late.
They go late,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's-
So,
but,
Yeah.
we obviously want to schedule this. so you
No,
can
I
be
know,
part of it.
and it can't just be based around my schedule, I understand that, so just put it together and I'll do my best to
Okay,
see
thanks.
that I can get there.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Okay. Good, we'll work
Good.
on that. and
Good.
Try to get that.
If we needed to, we could start at 7 a.m.
Really?
That might help.
Yeah. Sure. Coffee's on. We'll work that
Good.
out. And I like a lot of things. I like to keep this one moving and get it into before the public and the board. Jim?
Nothing this week.
Justin?
Only thing that's been on my mind is I just want to check Stuart to see if we ever heard back. I know a while back, the board, we offered a letter to Agency of Transportation to try and see if we can get the ball rolling on the condition of Northside Drive. The winter, obviously, I know funds are always what they are from my player, but, the winter highlighted it. And I think with this bridge closure now, it's becoming very, very apparent that our commercial sector, our biggest commercial sector is in disrepair down there. Have we heard anything back, or we have any expectation of?
No, we've had no formal response to the letter or to the request to discuss. I think the only thing that really has changed, and I think it's perhaps for the better, is Sue Minter has moved into the secretary's seat. Dan and Sue go back a ways, so we have, I think, an opportunity to have a conversation that is not directed through our legislators, but simply directed across the table. And we actually are hoping to have a conversation about some other things with the agency, and we'll include this one. as well.
Okay, in one of the, just kind of the catalysts, I think, is to push it forward. I know they purchased the property, former Haynes and Keynes
Yes.
property.
Yes, they did.
Obviously, they're looking to do something in that intersection there. We have the Walmart property that's going to be, they're going to be building their own roundabout there.
That's
And then
correct.
the work that they're doing and that we're contributing to and up there on the other end of the bridge.
What's the timeline for a lot of that?
Some of that could all come together, you know, at
Well,
one point in time.
Walmart could start perhaps this fall, although they may wait a construction season depending on how they prioritize that effort. That's going to be a massive undertaking. I think we're probably looking at 2 years before that roundabout is open, and I look out at Dan and just to confirm. But we understand they're getting ready. They want to start this spring on the whole project. I think that's going to generate a lot of interest in Northside Drive, and I think it may help us drive home that need for improvements to Northside Drive that go beyond simply just paving and managing water.
Sharon?
I just have a question, a follow-up. We had the citizen that asked you about, up at the recycling, about only having one bin there and only having, the doors were all shut, and I wondered what kind of response you got from Casella.
In fact, Casella is aware of the problem. The new railings that were installed meet the 42-inch height requirement for decks and porches, which are more than 30 inches off the ground. So the solution that they are currently working on is to actually raise the containers. So they'll be doing some filling beneath the containers so the containers come back up and make them accessible.
Because it was still only, well, I was up there Saturday, and there's only one container for recycling, and they had two for cardboard or whatever they have.
Well, it's zero sort recycling, so you can put all your stuff in
I
and
know,
you can get it in
but they
there.
had like 5 or 6 up there before, and now they've blocked off all where the walkways used to be. and
Well, I
taken
think,
them all out.
I think the most they'll ever have there is 3, because it is zero sort. They're going to move them out faster.
Okay,
There's no sense in segregating all of those recyclables any longer.
okay, thank you. That's
Thanks,
all.
Sharon. Thanks, Stu.
May I say one more thing?
Well, seeing it's your first meeting, sure.
I'm sorry.
That's good.
I thought somebody else was going to mention it. I feel like this board would be remiss, though, if we didn't make at least some mention of the phenomenal career work that happened last week. You know, there were so many people that put so much into that effort, and it was really an exceptional showing. Coming to the job fair up here was amazing, seeing all the people that were going around and looking for jobs. And a couple of the human resource peoples up at NSK did a weekend program, and they invited the community in, and that was, if anyone has not been there, that was just phenomenal. And it was not only amazing seeing all the machines and all the people working there, but hearing some of the inside details really was, I've lived here a good part of my life, and I was shocked to see how much fantastic activity was going on up there. So I think they all really deserve a big shout out. For example, who knew that NSK had a $2.5 million monthly payroll? That's a big impact.
That's $2.5 million.
Yeah, that's a big impact in our community. So it was really a great week, and I think all the people that put so much into that really deserve a shout out.
And I appreciate the banner's coverage of both the career and the recent activity in town. There's a lot going on, and a lot of folks that are spending a lot of effort and time. And I think there actually is is it Wednesday, the event at the Country Club relative to the cultural
The Expo.
Explosion,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's another real activity that's ongoing. And there's some dynamics here that the media is recognizing, and we should also participate.
In line with the explosion, we want to mention that also Alex Aldrich, who is the executive director of the Vermont Arts Council, will be there and be speaking. I think it's from 11 to 2 or 11 to 3.
11 to 3.
The event goes on.
Yeah. To 3, yeah.
11 to 3. Thank you, Joanne.
Good. Thank you for first meeting, making it that easy for me. And now I think it's time, if we have a motion to go in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
We will go into executive session. Thank you, folks.